2022 is set to be an exciting year for bougie people like us to rejoice. It's a very uncommon year that both Daiwa and Shimano would launch back-to-back new flagship reels, but this is what is happening in 2022. A new Exist and a new Stella. So today, Shimano was kind enough to send us some samples of the brand new 2022 Stellas. We are going to break down the new Stella, what improvements it's had, what you guys can expect. We're going to talk about it from a standpoint of a Shimano fanboy, if they're going to love it, and we're going to talk about it from the standpoint of a Daiwa fanboy, and is this the reel that's going to make you change from your Exist? Are you ready, Jeff?
Yeah.
Let's dive into the brand new 2022 Shimano Stella. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Depths, Lucky Craft, Jackal, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard to find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. Welcome back, my friends. I am Ben, the Tackle Otaku. We are the Hookup Tackle USA. I am, of course, being joined by my buddy, Jeffrey the King. What's up, Jeffrey the King?
Good to see you, Mike.
All right, so we spent a couple days with the brand new Shimano Stella. This is the 2022 Stella FK, the brand new one. You excited to break this thing down?
Yes.
There was some hesitation there.
I'm not a spinning reel guy. You know that.
We know that.
Right.
So this is not the reel that's going to make you bail from your Antares DC Monster Drive and switch to spinning for swim baits?
Well, I mean, it is a pretty large reel, as we'll talk about.
Yeah.
And maybe I do use it.
Okay.
Put some 25-pound fluorocarbon on
Yeah,
it.
I think it's exactly what you need, Jeff. Maybe just straight braid.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Even
good.
Better.
Yeah, ugly stick, Stella, it's a perfect combo. So, since we have derailed this video already, let's start out by prefacing this as this is a first look episode, right? These just arrived a few days ago. We spooled a couple up, we put them on some rods, we took them out. We have fished them now just a couple of times. We fished them from a boat in a lake, we fished them from shore in a river to try to get a really good first impression and feel of this reel. Now, I am not a previous Stella fan. I think that's obvious. I speak a lot about my love for the Daiwa Exist, so I am going to be reviewing this a lot from the standpoint of trying to be objective, right? And trying to give you guys stats and facts and specs and overall impression, so that if you just love Shimano and you have a previous version Stella, is this one worth upgrading? Also, if you guys are Exist fans as well, I know a lot of people have been eyeballing this. Both Daiwa and Shimano kind of launched their flagship $800, $900 reels right at the same time. And if we're comparing Stella to Exist just off pictures and marketing material, Shimano's already won. So I have never had so many comments in my inbox, and Exist looks kind of boring, but man, that Stella looks sexy. And I would agree. I think the Stella looks super sexy. So let's start with an unboxing, Jeff, shall we? This is the brand new Stella. Now, we had them send us 3,000 size. The Stella is going to be available in a 1,000, a 2,500, a 3,000, and also a 4,000 and a 5,000 version, okay? This is definitely aimed at more of the freshwater / inshore guy versus a true saltwater release. I'm sure the saltwater versions, the bigger size, will be updated at some point as well. So here you go. You get this beautiful Stella box.
Beautiful.
Right? You get this Couture felt bag.
Couture.
I mean, you can't just go buy Stella bags anywhere, Jeff. here is the money shot. The beautiful new 2022 Stella. And I will say, sex appeal, super high in this guy. It is a beautiful, beautiful reel. Let's throw the handle on there. Boom. There we go. Straight out of the box to you, brand new Stella 3000 FK. Now, let's talk about some of the specs. And it's important to know about tech. It's important to know about specs so that you understand what the brand is going for with the reel and you understand what is inside of this reel. We can geek out on this stuff all day long, right? We can split fractions on weight. We can split fractions on, well, this gear is better than this gear, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to follow it up by some actual real world experience and initial thoughts. Because at the end of the day, no matter what dope stuff is supposed to be inside of this, does it cast good? Is it smooth? Does it drag work, right? These are things that we want to know as anglers, and those are the most important pieces, right? So let's break this down really quick and talk about some of the new items that are in this. Now, you are going to hear a word spoken a lot when we talk about Stella, and that is the word infinity. So there are several new techs in this Stella that all have to do with infinity. So let's start with Infinity Cross. Okay, so Stellas have been famous for being just the ultra strong, ultra smooth reel. They have just dominated big game spinning reel fishing in saltwater for years and years and years. Shimano is famous for their cold forged aluminum gearing, super strong. Their new Infinity Cross is a redesign of the gears where they have changed the teeth to be even smoother and more contact in a smooth long-term way, right? So what that basically means is you're probably not going to tell initially. I mean, the reel is crazy butter smooth, right? It's 12+1 bearings. It's a beautifully built reel, so it's going to be super smooth, super smooth. But that Infinity Cross should lead to much greater durability and maintain that smoothness over time, especially when you are fishing for hard pulling fish. If you're fishing inshore for redfish or snook or these kinds of things, it's going to really withstand all the abuse that you're going to put to it. So this is something that long term is probably going to be very beneficial in the new reel. Short term, you know, it's there. I know it's there, right? It's great to have it. It's kind of like, you know, buying a diesel truck. And, you know, when you've put 1,000 miles on it, it's cool, right? But you didn't really get the benefit of the diesel until you got to 200,000 miles and it's still going just as strong as it went at 1,000 miles, right? That's essentially what Shimano put in here with the new Infinity Cross. Now, the next Infinity tech that they have put is what they are calling Infinity Loop. Now, Infinity Loop is a new system on the spool, okay? So that is basically designed to lay the line exactly next to itself, down and up, right? So they're trying to eliminate any kind of cross connection or line crossing over it, so that if the line is parallel spooled, both up and down, in theory, when you go to cast, it should come off the spool much smoother and with less friction, and it's just going to give you better casting distance, right? So when we're at this level of reel, we are really micro dissecting things here, and the improvements are going to be smaller improvements but important improvements, right? So all the steps here are going to be little changes that are going to make a big impact for somebody that's used to this tech. So this should definitely cast better, cast farther than previous generation Stellas. You will notice that the oscillation of that spool, it is super, super slow. You can see how long it takes for that spool to make it all the way to the top and all the way back down to the bottom, and that's to really allow that parallel lining to happen. Now, we spooled up a couple, right? I've been putting this one through the test for quite some time. You can see it's pretty parallel. You don't see a lot of cross line on that guy. Another spool, all right, that we've been pushing hard for the last couple days, and you will see that that line is very, very parallel. So it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. The line is laying very parallel to itself. So when you go to cast, it's going to come off. The other nice thing about that line being very parallel is it is going to further reduce twisting, further reduce those annoying knots that happen when you go to cast and all of a sudden you get this kind of crazy knot. A lot of times that happens just from the line laying in weird ways on the spool as you're retrieving. So definitely a big improvement there for this Stella. Now another tech that you're not going to be able to see in this is a tech called Infinity Drive. Now Infinity Drive is going to be another kind of powertrain thing that you're not going to really experience or notice in the beginning of this reel. Think of it as just like a super duty heavy transmission, if you will, on a diesel truck, right? Nobody's transmission is bad at 1,000 miles, but when you put 200,000 miles on it, some trains are just built to withstand, and that's essentially what they have put in the Stella. So Infinity Drive is basically changing the drivetrain, and instead of just having X-ship, which is little bearing reinforced, you know, pinion gears and stuff in there, they have changed and taken from saltwater and put into these smaller size a much bigger platform that extends the entire length of the reel. So you have this much bigger gearing inside to eliminate any torque, any twisting, so you can abuse this reel as hard as you can. I mean, you know, gone are the days of spinning reels just being for, you know, crappie and panfish and light line bass fishing, right? Guys are using spinning reels for all kinds of things. So this is Shimano looking forward to this maybe not just being a bass reel, right? Not just being a reel that we're fighting a smallmouth or a largemouth is going to be a short surge, right? But maybe we're putting it into some brackish water. Maybe we're throwing it up against a red or a snook or a small tarpon or something that's going to really put this reel into the test. It's going to push it. The drag's going to be screaming. The reel's going to be going under all kinds of pressure, and that new Infinity Drive should help the reel stay super rigid and smooth and withstand lots of hard fighting fish. Now back to line management. We talked about the Infinity Loop and the way it lays the line down. There is also a new feature on this that a lot of guys have been talking about, okay? And this is the new anti-twist fin. I don't know, can you see it there, Jeff? It's this little polymer piece right here on the spool here. Now, it's a polymer, so it's rigid, but it's flexible. Can you see that there, Jeff? Okay, what this is designed to do is this is designed to eliminate line twists in a couple of different ways. When you open the spool and you go to cast, right, one of the most annoying things is the line just kind of laying down and you got to close, and this is where most line twist happens, right? When you close and you're not paying attention, you have all this loose line laying down there and it wraps inside your spool. This fin is designed to kind of take the twist out of the line and make sure that the line is staying here between the rotor and the spool and going on smoothly. Now, I can tell you, this is definitely a problem with spinning reels. Even if you're always paying attention to it, there are just times when you cast and you're moving and you're not watching your line because you're focused on what's happening, and twists can happen, even if you're diligent about it, right? After a couple of days of fishing and fishing these really hard, the fin absolutely works. Never had a single line twist. Now we're gonna see what happens over the course of 6 months, in a year, and after we've put these things through the test, if I really feel that it's making a difference. But it took out every possible twist or kink or whatever that we could have had. Never experienced it one time, right? Now, one of the asterisks about this fin that a lot of people have been scared about is, well, what if you are using braid to leader and you've got to have that knot come through this little area, right? Is it going to snag? Is it going to catch? These types of things. Well, first off, when you go to cast, you're completely taking it out of the situation. So from a castability standpoint, it makes no difference. So if you guys are running really long leaders to braid, as you go to cast, that fin is going to have zero impact on you, right? It's going to cast the same with or without the fin. So the question becomes, if the fish are pulling drag, is that fin going to catch? Now, we played with leader lengths in different lengths. We did some short, we did some long, so the line would be in the spool, the line would be out of the spool. Depending on the knot, I would say that most manufacturers now, as they are thinking through braid to leader connections, most people are kind of focused on the FG knot. I would say the FG knot is kind of the knot that is taken over as the accepted knot of choice. I don't tie the FG knot. I'm still old school Alberto, right? I ain't got time to mess with that. I just want to throw some loops in there, connect it, and let's go, right? So, and a lot of guys are like me. They just don't want to sit there and play with that FG knot. I know the FG knot's the best, but the Alberto is 99% as good, and I'm good with that, right? So, this is 19-pound braid to 10-pound leader, right? I just want you guys to see if that's coming through. Let's turn it this way so you can see it. You see that? Comes through just as smooth as it would have gone through with just a regular straight fluoro, okay? So I never experienced any hiccups with that whatsoever. It was a concern of mine in the beginning with this reel, not a concern at all with it. So for me, I know it's just kind of a silly little plastic fin, but I think that's a big, big improvement. Over the next few years, we're gonna see that fin trickle down into all Shimano reels. Wouldn't be surprised if this is something that Daiwa and other reel manufacturers start putting on their reels as well, because I noticed instantly a big difference in line management. All right, and a couple other small little tweaks that Shimano has done to this reel. Speaking more about line propulsion, because casting distance is super important and the ease of cast is really critical when we're talking about these high-end reels and some of the lighter baits that we are throwing. Shimano is famous for having kind of a angled spool at the top, right? The top of the angles are kind of at a, or the top of the spool is kind of at an angle that's designed to just kind of help that line come off on the coil so it's a smoother transition. But one thing that can be very annoying with spinning reels is a lot of times when there is a twist, or a lot of times when the line isn't managed properly, as you wind in, a lot of times you get these funky little kind of loops that go over the spool because there's so much loose line happening that it's kind of common for a little loop to happen on the top of the spool. And if you guys have had previous generation Stellas, this has been something that's kind of been annoying about some of the Shimano spinning reels because it's a narrow spool. So that line is forced into narrower loops and these types of things happen. So Shimano has redesigned the top cap. You'll notice it almost looks completely flat up here from the spool to the drag cap. So they have gone from a 45-degree angle to a 20-ish degree angle, 20, 25 degrees, virtually flat, right? Which allows that line, if it does start to loop, it just falls off and eliminates that. They've also put a special coating on the spool that makes it much, much slicker. So if it does start to hang, again, it falls back into the spool and then it's managed within the spool. So, you know, in theory, the castability of this thing should be much, much higher. We spent the last couple of days throwing 1/4 ounce, 3/8 ounce, 1/2 ounce stuff. It threw just fine, right? I mean, at this point, right, does this throw better than an Exist or vice versa? They both throw great, right? So management-wise, genius. I think with the parallel spooling, we're going to see how that plays out over time and see if that really makes a big improvement in my experience on the water. Now, let's talk about drag for a minute. So they have put in a new, what they're calling a Duracross drag system. Now everybody knows that most drags are some form of stacked washer system, right? Felt is kind of like one of the more old school materials to use. Carbon fiber has become one of the new materials to use, and there's pros and cons to both, right? Felt generally is a smoother material, so you get a little less startup inertia for that to kind of spin. Carbon is a little harder, so it tends to be a little bit stronger and resist kind of flattening. So as a durability standpoint, carbon tends to be a little bit more durable. Well, this new Duracross material is taking carbon, but it's weaving the carbon instead of just kind of throwing carbon fibers wherever they want to go. It's a diligent weaving process that creates a hard material like carbon, but a smooth material at the same time, like felt. So it is a cross carbon drag that is designed to perform like felt. So you still get the durability of the carbon, but you get the smoothness of the felt. So as far as smooth factor on the drag, it's butter smooth. Stella has always been butter smooth. So you get a nice smooth drag that should also be a very durable drag. As a bass fisherman, right, I'm putting these reels through really nothing but bass. Durability of drag isn't something that's critically important to me. I just want it to have butter smooth, easy. I want the startup inertia to be so little that when a big fish surges at the boat, that the reel just performs flawlessly. I don't want to be back reeling and stripping line off and panicking. I want to spend $800 and let the reel do what it's built to do, and that's fight the fish for me. So far, this drag has been butter smooth, everything that you would expect out of a $800 reel. All right, so now that we've kind of spec'd it out and talked about some of the new technologies, let's talk about real world impressions here. So one of the first things I noticed when I pulled this guy out was that it felt heavy in the hand. Now, I know that we just covered a ton of tech here, right? And they've put, bigger, more durable stuff in there. So it makes sense that the weight would go up, but it's 2022, right? Everything else is going down in weight, and Shimano found a way to take the Stella and make it heavier, right? So they have actually gone up in weight. So the 3000 is 7.4 ounces. The 2500 is also 7.4 ounces. So, if you are used to an Exist, a 3000 Exist is 6.5 ounces, and this is the old Exist, right? So they are clouding the new one, the 2022, to be 15% lighter than this one, right? So, initial feel, I know that doesn't seem like a lot, an ounce, but here, we'll do one with no line and one with no line. Jeff, feel, tell me your initial thought.
Well, yeah, right away.
It's noticeable, right? So noticeable right out of the gate, you're gonna notice that it is heavier if you are coming either way. If you're coming from old Stella, it's heavier than your old Stella. If you're coming from Exist, it's substantially heavier than Exist. So again, there's reason for it, right? There's some big improvements in the durability of this drivetrain. But dude, we're the TikTok generation. I want my satisfaction now. I don't want to wait a year or 2 years or 3 years to be like, oh man, that was a great investment. I want to put it on and be blown away right out of the gate. So when you pull it out, if weight is important to you, I think Shimano missed it here. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're putting some durability in. That's what you're going to be getting for that extra weight. So you're going to have to overlook the little bit of weight for some potential durability down the road. Another thing that has just always kind of drove me crazy about Shimano is, again, for an $800 reel, there should not be many things on here that feel cheap, right? There should not be anything cheap about an $800 reel. And I just have never really liked the feel of this drag cap. It feels plasticky. It feels kind of cheap. It just, I don't know. It's first impression. I'm micro dissecting this because performance of this reel, it performs great. It's smooth, it casts great. We've talked about the drivetrain, it's gonna be super durable, but there's just some little things that, and I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know, you tell me, Jeff. Does that feel, I don't know, this just feels so much smoother to me. Now here, do this one.
Yeah. There's something to this one.
Right. That one feels more elegant in a way. Am I going crazy?
This does feel a lot smoother.
Yeah. So, these are just little tactical things that you guys are going to be doing every single day. You're going to be putting your hands on these every day, and you have to enjoy and like what it is that you're touching, what it is that you're feeling, the overall experience as well. Now, we put these reels side by side on different rods to really test the rods, right? But we also wanted to test the reels and see how did the Stella stack up to the Exist, because I want to know, as an Exist fan, is this the reel that's going to make me leave this reel, right? I can tell you that this reel performed flawlessly. It did everything I expected it to do as an $800 reel. But when I went back to this, I still enjoyed the drag performance better on this. It was still so light that I just preferred this. So will this cause me to switch from this? No, not yet, right? First impressions, no. Long term, I'm curious to see what this thing is going to be like, you know, again, 6-12 months down the road. But I've been beating these things for, you know, years and still are super in love with them. Now, if you guys are a Shimano guy and you are coming from previous generation Stellas, I will tell you this is the first Stella that I'm adding to my lineup. So I've never been impressed with any of the Stellas previous to this. I've thought there was just a huge difference between a Steez and a Stella, an Exist and a Stella. Now I would say that gap is very, very small. Now I would say it's going to come down to personal preference. And personal preference is going to be, do you like this thing to be featherweight? And there's going to be some rods that being super light is probably a bad thing. Right? As we get into longer rods, more powerful rods, you may even want the little heavier weight. It may fit in your hand better. So you may find that this actually makes more sense to go to as well. But general first impressions, Shimano, I think, hit a major home run. I think it's a huge improvement. If you are a Shimano fan, this is going to be something you're definitely going to flock to. If you are a Daiwa fan, I would say you're going to probably keep this on the radar. If all you're doing is bass fishing like I'm doing, I don't think there's any crossover that's going to happen here. I don't think Shimano is going to steal anybody from Daiwa and put them into the Stella court. Now, if you guys are doing inshore in some light duty saltwater, I could potentially see a reason to jump ship and jump over to this. Now, the other important thing to point out, the Stella is going to be available in a 2500 HG and a 3000 XG. And I'm talking about those two sizes because that makes up 90% of the sales of those 5 sizes, right? So what that means is a 3000 XG, right? That is 37 inches of line pickup per turn. So it's going to be very equivalent to like a mid 8-to-1 gear ratio in a bait caster. Currently, the 3000 Exist that I'm in love with is basically the same, 37 inches. But the new Exist coming out is slow. So if having new tech, new gear, and real high speed is important to you, then you may want to really pay attention to this Stella over the new Exist from that one point. If you guys are bottom contact fishing, it sure is nice to have that line pickup and that higher gear ratio. So there could be something there too. We'll have to see when the new Exist comes out. All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap on the brand new first impressions review of the new 2022 Shimano Stella. As a recap, I think they nailed it. I think the reel is beautiful. It's sexy as hell. It performs great. I think you guys are going to love this reel. We will see what happens over time. Is it going to get me to switch from Daiwa? No. But I'm adding it to the arsenal. It performed good enough to where I want to give it a little bit more time and really make up my mind. So we'll do another more in-depth review, Jeff, maybe after we've put it through a whole spring of fishing, we've put a few hundred fish on it and really put it through the test. So if you guys have any questions on the new Stella, drop them down below. I'd be happy to answer and give any of my insight as to my experiences with it. Jeff will leave links to the new Stella as well if you guys want to check it out. And until next time, guys, enjoy fishing, have a good time, take a look at the new Stella. Thank you, Shimano, for sending them. We will see you again soon. Peace.